SpaceX teams slowly prepare the first orbital-class Starship and Super Heavy booster. SpaceX is rapidly innovating with its Starship and needs to test it extensively, by sending it to orbit. For now, it's almost impossible to say when Starship S-20 and Super Heavy B-4 will be ready for their orbital launch debut, as that now lies almost solely in the hands of the FAA. The list of tasks started or completed in just the last week or two is significant, and each one is singularly focused on similar goals. Pave the way for SpaceX to finish testing the first orbital-class Starship and Super Heavy booster, and prepare for the first orbital launch attempt of the largest rocket ever built. While SpaceX's progress towards those goals over the last several months has been decidedly slow, relative to the pace of similar work completed in the very recent past. The nominal timeline Musk recently sketched out suggests that things could once again start to happen at a dizzying rate. Launch tower kicking off a jam-packed 2 weeks of minor to major finishing touches, SpaceX rigged Starbase orbital launch tower's rocket catching arms to a system of pulleys and drawworks, in a process known as reeving. Thousands of feet of rope were first threaded from up, down, and through the approximately 145 meters, approximately 440 feet, tower to act as a temporary guide for the next step. Once fully rigged, anchored, and attached to the start of the steel cable actually meant to operate the system, the tower's drawworks was activated for the first time to reel in the guide rope, simultaneously installing the steel cable. By November 9, the process was more or less complete, leaving the steel cable firmly attached to the tower's giant rocket-catching arms, and able to carry their significant weight. SpaceX hasn't quite finished installing those arms, and does not appear to have picked up the slack in the cable that will eventually lift them up and down the tower, but the arm assembly's first real move is likely just a few weeks away. Notably, a bit of scaffolding around the tower's legs still needs to be removed before the catch arms can freely roll up and down rails welded to their exteriors. SpaceX will also need to complete shakedown testing of the arms themselves, ensuring that the massive structure's hydraulic, electrical, and mechanical systems are all working properly. In the near future, those arms will be used to grab, lift, and install Super Heavy boosters and stack Starships on top of them, while SpaceX also hopes to eventually use them to catch boosters and ships out of midair. At least for the former role, a separate arm visible about halfway up the tower in the photo above will also be crucial. Known as the tower's Starship Quick Disconnect QD arm or claw, SpaceX has also made significant progress on the structure, practically completing it in the last few days. Designed to fuel Starship and stabilize the top of Super Heavy with its claw, the Starship QD arm is also able to swing left and right, both to quickly back away during launches and to make room for the catch arms during rocket catches and ship booster stacking operations. Last week, SpaceX technicians finished plumbing the arm, which requires thousands of feet of insulated steel tubes to connect to the pad's propellant tanks. This week, on November 23, SpaceX installed the last major component of the arm, the actual quick disconnect mechanism that will connect to Starship to supply power, communications, and propellant. A few small actuators likely still need to be installed, and the QD mechanism itself will have to be fully connected to pad systems, but the QD arm now appears to be more or less complete, and should soon be ready to fuel Starships installed on top of Super Heavy boosters. SpaceX's latest plan to increase the number of flights they can mount by drastically reducing turnaround time. The key to this was a new launch tower that would catch first-stage boosters after they return to Earth. This would forego the need to install landing legs on future Super Heavy boosters and potentially future Starship returning to Earth. Musk shared this idea in response to a tweet, who asked if his latest render of a Starship landing next to its launch tower was accurate. As usual, Musk responded via Twitter, saying, "We're going to try to catch the Super Heavy booster with the launch tower arm, using the grid fins to take the load, saves mass and cost of legs and enables immediate repositioning of booster onto launch mount, ready to refly in under an hour." So Musk is promising a turnaround time of less than 1 hour now, and has confirmed that future Starships will be retrievable using this same apparatus, and others like it. This latter scenario is likely to occur if and when Starships begin taking passengers on point-to-point flights between major cities, a service that Musk has promised will be available once the Starship is cleared for commercial flights. In the same thread, Musk was asked if such a structure would ever be built on Mars, and if super heavy boosters might be built there for missions to the outer solar system. Yes, on both counts. That would be a great outcome for civilization, replied Musk. SpaceX clashed with the FAA again when it started building a launch tower without permission. This 150-meter tall structure will one day lift and catch enormous Starship sections. The structure itself went up extremely quickly, with the usual SpaceX urgency. But, the FAA warned SpaceX that it might need to drastically change the tower, once the environmental review is complete. Despite this, SpaceX continues to build the tower and the surrounding infrastructure at an incredible pace. With a rapid and ever-changing launch schedule, these kinds of requirements stand in the way of SpaceX's progress. Elon Musk sees this as a big issue for the future. He claims that the FAA's rules are outdated and only made sense in the past, when there were only a handful of rocket launches every year. No one is arguing that the FAA isn't a great thing for airplanes. But if we want to have hundreds of rockets launching and landing each day around the world, the FAA will need to drastically improve the way it operates. But that's exactly what it's doing. In order to catch up with the pace of innovation, the FAA is now working to streamline the process for space companies. Those 4 parts of the rule book have now been condensed down into a single part for all commercial spaceflight. Space companies can now apply for a vehicle operator license, which will allow them to fly from multiple different launch sites under the same license. This will be crucial if SpaceX are to go ahead with their Earth-to-Earth travel idea. Although the idea of Starship Earth travel may seem far away, the same kind of suborbital passenger travel is already happening. Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin have now achieved their goals of flying passengers to space. After trying for nearly 2 decades, amazingly, both companies achieved this goal in the exact same month. But the FAA was just as much of a hurdle to them as it was for SpaceX. Initially, Virgin Galactic's license only covered test flights with professional pilots and astronauts. However, this license was recently updated to a full commercial launch license, allowing them to start flying passengers. This was good news for the 600 people that have already bought tickets for a ride into space. The FAA requires them to do 2 additional test flights before they can start doing their own thing. Once the remaining test flights have been completed successfully, it could be your chance to go to space. Thanks for watching this video, and it's a super interesting topic. If you like this, make sure to subscribe. If you have any crazy ideas about what we should cover in next video, please comment it below, and we'll see if we can get to it. So thanks again for watching and goodbye.